What if our society adopts the bioeconomy? We'll guarantee our food and energy security and our industrial independence. We'll develop economic growth and create secure, rurally based jobs. We'll preserve our more sustainable lifestyles over the long term. At IAR, we are convinced that the bioeconomy can meet tomorrow's challenges. But what is the bioeconomy? The bioeconomy encompasses all the activities of production and transformation of biomass, forestry, agriculture and aquaculture for food, industrial and energy production, in concrete applications relating to many areas of our daily life: food and cosmetic products, construction and transport materials, fuels. At the heart and at the service of the bioeconomy, IAR coordinates the stakeholders and acts to promote their innovations, their developments and their growth. Since 2005, we have supported more than 350 innovative projects for a total investment of more than 2 billion euros across the region. We contribute to bioeconomy strategies at regional, national and European level. Our ambition is to develop the bioeconomy through 4 priority actions: establish linkage between the stakeholders and promote partnerships, facilitate the research, development and commercialization of innovative solutions, ensure a legislative and regulatory framework favourable to the development of the bioeconomy, promote the French bioeconomy. IAR focuses its activities around 5 thematic areas: bioresources, food and feed, bio-based chemistry, bio-based products, and bioenergies. We are carrying out this work of innovation alongside and at the service of our members, a powerful network of more than 430 bioeconomy leaders present throughout France and Europe. The members of IAR Cluster represent the entire value chain of the bioeconomy, from the primary production to the valorization of bio-based resources. The IAR team, with its 30 bioeconomy experts, is fully engaged towards your service. We offer our members premium services to support them successfully in their innovation and development challenges. We believe in the bioeconomy, a collective, sustainable and responsible project. IAR is now the leader of the bioeconomy in France and in Europe. Join us to make the bioeconomy the economy of tomorrow.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Biotech Digital. My name is Johan de Koning from IAR, the French Bioeconomy Cluster. Today's webinars concern the adoption of advanced technologies by the bio-based industry and its monitoring. The uptake of these technologies by the industry is essential to keep our competitiveness and can contribute to ensure economic growth in Europe. This webinar is co-organized with the project ATI, Advanced Technology for Industry, a project funded by the European Union to provide tools to monitor the adoption of these technologies by the industry. Since people participating to this webinar are interested by advanced technologies, I would like to bring to your attention our next webinar, Explore the Journey of a Chromatography Project from Lab to Industrial. This webinar will be co-organized with Novacep, and it will be on next June 24th. Registration are free but mandatory on our website. I would make a mistake if I don't mention here our international conferences Biotech. Biotech is dedicated to key enabling technology to transform biomass into high added value bio-based product. It will be next March 15, 16, 17, and it will be on site. The call for paper is actually open. Finally, in a totally different topic, but still pretty promising and essential to build a sustainable world, our symposium Plant Bioprotect next June 28, July 21st in 2022. This symposium is dedicated to biocontrol and biostimulation technologies for agriculture. Today, we are going to tackle the uptake of advanced technologies by the bio-based industry. And I have the pleasure to welcome Giorgio Micheletti, Consultant Director at IDC and in charge of the ATI project. Together with Sven Widra from the Fraunhofer in Germany, he will moderate the webinar this webinar today. Giorgio, I will stop sharing my screen. I call you to the floor, and the floor is yours. You can share your screen and start presenting, let's say, the project.
Thank you very much, Johan. Thank you for the nice introduction. I will also give a short introduction myself. Let me first share the screen so that everyone can be on the same page. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, we can see it.
I'll put it in. So thank you very much again. My name is Giorgio Micheletti. I'm from IDC. IDC is one of the companies involved in the project that Johan just introduced. So ATI stands for Advanced Technologies for Industry. What we'll do in this project is actually monitoring a series of technologies. I'll leave the floor in a second to the representative of the European Commission who is funding and financing this project. Before actually moving into the actual content of this day, I will give you a short presentation of the agenda today. We will have, as I said, in a few minutes, a few introductory notes from Evangelos Meles, who's policy officer at the DG GROW, who is currently conducting these studies together with IDC, Fraunhofer Institute, and other partners who are not represented here today. Then the event is divided essentially in two main parts. The first part, we will give a short introduction and some contents and presenting results of the project itself regarding the advanced technologies that we have been monitoring with specific reference to the bio-based industries and the bioeconomy. Then in the second part, Dr. Sven Biederer from the Fraunhofer Institute in Karlsruhe will moderate the panel discussions with our distinguished speakers. So we have Ludo Diels, Georg Lenzen, and Agnes Borg, representing in different forms and shapes the actual industry itself. So we will have an insight from the industry directly. And then a few closing remarks to wrap up the discussions. So without much further ado, if it's fine with everyone, I will now leave the floor to Evangelos Meles, representing European Commission, who will introduce the project and also put it in the wider context of the current policy of the European Commission. Evangelos.
Thank you, Giorgio, and good morning, everybody. Let me share my screen as well. Giorgio, if you can stop sharing, so
Yep.
I can take over. Thank you. So let me know if it is visible.
Looks fine.
Thank you. So good morning again, and many thanks to both Giorgio as well as Johan for the nice introduction to the project. I would like to welcome you on behalf of the European Commission to this virtual event. As Giorgio said, I'm Evangelos Meles. I work in the Directorate General for Internal Market, Industry, Entrepreneurship and SMEs, which is shortly named DG GROW, in the specific unit D2, that's dealing with the industrial forum, alliances, and clusters. I myself am dealing with the uptake of key enabling technologies, as well as other industrial policy files, among them the Industrial Forum and the organization of the annual EU Industry Days conference. Alongside three other colleagues, Marta Bataya Masana and Zabol Zekas in the same unit as myself, as well as Lucia Masarova from the executive agency AISMEA. We are responsible for the Advanced Technologies for Industry project, shortly ATI. And in the next few slides, I will walk you through a brief introduction of our project. But first, a few words about the policy context of our work. As Johan magnificently put it, I would say advanced technologies are extremely important for the industry. As for any innovative product, service, or process, one has to go through some kind of fusion of these technologies, and they enable companies of all sizes to become more competitive as well as innovative. And it is not only about innovation, but also a matter of resilience and adaptability to the changing dynamics that were even accentuated and brought forward by the COVID pandemic. The importance of advanced technologies has been highlighted in the industrial strategy announced in March 2020, as well as in the communication on shaping Europe's digital future that was published again in February last year. And of course, the overall policy umbrella, I would say, for the project and our work is the European Green Deal, which is our growth strategy. All these three policies together are providing the context for the work in the project for the last 2.5 years. The 2020 industrial strategy noted that if EU wanted to lead the digital and green transitions, its strategy required an industrial innovation aspect at its heart. And I would say it's within this scope that the advanced technologies for industry project is providing both the qualitative as well as the quantitative data on technological developments and trends. In the meantime, just 2 weeks ago, the Commission published the communication updating the 2020 industrial strategy, which is also accompanied by 3 staff working documents. And within the staff working document on strategic dependencies and capacities, the results of the ATI project have been leveraged to a great extent in presenting the EU performance in key advanced technologies, including, of course, industrial biotechnology. And for more information about this, I would invite everybody to check the staff working document following the link that is displayed in the slide. We have thus set up the ATI project to analyze the state of the uptake of advanced technologies by the EU industry. And this analysis is done via a set of tools like a data dashboard with relevant key performance indicators, sectoral reports, policy briefs, and other reports. And you may find all this on the website shown on the slide, so ati.ec.europa.eu. The project is using, I would say, both traditional as well as novel types of data, such as patent data, business surveys, Crunchbase, deal room, LinkedIn, as well as text mining of company websites as regards to advanced technologies. And by advanced technologies, we mean that really the focus is on both digital as well as key enabling technologies, among which, as I said, we can find industrial biotechnology. In total, 16 of these technologies are monitored. And for more information about them, as well as more information about the methodology that the project is following, you can have a look on the full methodological report that's published on the website in the link that you can see on this slide at the bottom. Now, as regards to the statistical data that the project produced on the generation, uptake, and use of advanced technologies, all of it can be accessed via the data dashboard. And there you can find key performance indicators both per country, but as well as per sector, at least for the sectors that the project has analyzed thus far. And also you can find indicators that the project gathers from other sources to depict the enabling conditions of the technology generation and uptake value chain, such as on skills or investments. And the whole framework is positioned as a framework of monitoring really the performance of industrial modernization. But apart from this quantitative analysis that the project produces, we also have qualitative analysis in a set of analytical reports. And to the extent possible, these reports include the quantitative data as well, which is the case, for example, for the EU report, some of the international reports, as well as the sectoral reports that are highlighted. Specifically in the EU report, you will find the main findings of the project. The report explores trends in the generation and uptake of advanced technologies, related entrepreneurial activities, leveraging data, for example, from Crunchbase and Dealroom, as well as skills, leveraging data from LinkedIn. Similarly, but from a sectoral perspective, the sectoral reports analyze trends in the scope of 10 sectors that we have analyzed, including automotive, medical devices, electronics, agri-food, and others. From the side of the technology watch reports, I would say this is a slightly different kind of reporting that allows us to better assess the maturity of some technologies that we have been following, and as well as their potential market applications and use cases. On the other hand, the product watch reports analyze 15 promising advanced technology-based products, as well as their value chains, depicting also some of the actors along these value chains, and include as well an assessment of the strengths and weaknesses of the EU positioning within the landscape of these value chains. And the policy briefs analyze the specific policy themes and the respective policy measures and tools, both in national as well as in European level, related to uptake of advanced technologies. And lastly, the international reports include an analysis of the technological trends in competing economies, such as US and China, including comparison with the EU competitive positioning in advanced technologies. As Giorgio said, both Giorgio and Sven from the ATI consortium that's supporting the project will provide you in the next presentations more details about some of these reports with a specific focus and data on industrial biotechnology. Another tool that's hosted on the website that is complementing the monitoring and the analysis of the project is the mapping of technology centers. These centers are both active in advanced technologies as well as providing technology services to SMEs. And this tool include SME contact details for each center, as well as the respective technology services and equipment that the center possess. Interested companies or business intermediaries, I would say, clusters or other actors can easily use the filters in order to find centers that could help them in the different activities like pilot production and demonstration, lab testing, or product validation. And although not part of the ATI project, I would also like to bring to your attention the Get for Clean Production project that we fund via Horizon 2020. And to which many of the technology centers that appear in the ATI mapping also participate. And specifically in this project, by promoting the use of advanced manufacturing technologies, as well as other key enabling technologies, its aim is to make the production processes of SMEs cleaner and more energy efficient. And to achieve this, the project has established an open innovation ecosystem composed of manufacturing SMEs, technology centers that, as I said, have registered to the ATI Technology Center mapping, as well as partners of the Enterprise Europe network. And the whole innovation ecosystem is implemented through the online platform getforsme.eu, where you can also find success stories, all success stories of the project, including projects with a specific focus on industrial biotechnology. And in complementing to what Johan said about relevant events, I would really invite everybody to join the final conference that the project organizes on 10th of June, which is also the official platform launch, which might be of relevance for all of you to follow and join. You may register following the link shown in the bottom of the slide. And with this, I would like to thank you for your attention and really thank both the consortium as well as the French Bioeconomy Cluster for hosting us and for the hard work in preparing the webinar, as well as, of course, the speakers that have kindly accepted to participate. And I look forward to the discussions. Back to you, the virtual floor, Giorgio. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Vangelis. A thorough introduction to our project with that goes, I think, into the ins and outs of our research, but also of our production. So yes, I also encourage all of you to visit our website where you can find the results and you can find the different pieces and tracks of analysis. Now, going back to the event itself, let's move into the first half of this event. So let me share again my screen and my presentation. So what I'd like to present in the next few minutes are some of the results from one of the two surveys that we conducted across a wide range of companies in the EU, so across all the EU 27 member states. There were several questions, but the most important, I would say, were around the adoption and key trends of advanced technologies. So here we're going to concentrate on the bio-based industry. And first of all, let me repeat this slide. This has been shown by Vangelis a few seconds ago, but it's worth having a second look. These are the 16 technologies that form part of our scope. These technologies were chosen and also partly defined, because some of them are quite new, with the European Commission itself. As you can see, industrial biotechnology is featuring here, and therefore is the one that we're looking into today more closely. There are, as Vangelis said, technologies that tend to be quite horizontal by nature, in the sense that they will be featured in all different sectors, and they are the basis of digital transformation and industry modernization in Europe and elsewhere. So if we take big data, if we take cloud computing, if we take connectivity, then clearly without this technology, there's little digitization that can be done. But then there are more specific and industry specific and let's say niche technologies that are also part of our scope. So moving into a first overview of the uptake, so the adoption of these technologies in Europe, based on our survey, or the last survey that we conducted, the results are from November, so end of November 2020, so they are less than 6 months old, and we can say that they are still valid. This is an overview across all technologies, across all member states, across all industries. And you can see that we can divide advanced technologies across, in 4 main groups, let's say. So those who are 60% or more in terms of adoption, those that are in the middle high range, middle low range, and low range. Now, not surprisingly, the technologies that tend to be horizontal and are the basis of a digital transformation, that are clearly the one exhibiting the highest adoption rate. So connectivity, cloud computing, security, but also advanced manufacturing, interestingly, are 60% or more in terms of adoption. If we look at biotechnologies, then we have to go at the bottom of this chart. Now, it doesn't mean that biotechnologies, it's not important. It simply means that it is at the basis of a very specific industry, although in the presentation that we were given by Johan and that was shown in the video at the very beginning of this event, we showed that the value chain and the value chain of the industry is very varied. It's quite large, but still, this is a niche technologies in nature, and that's probably is at the basis of this low number. Our projections are, however, on the increase. So if we are to conduct the same survey, let's say in 12 months, probably the results will be different. A quick look on the right-hand side of this slide, because here we'd like to introduce the concept of co-presence of technology adoption, meaning that real digital transformation, digitization, is usually brought forward by the simultaneous adoption of more than one advanced technologies. So uptake in biotechnologies only is probably not, it's not enough. So the good thing is that according to our survey, more than 78% of the respondents of companies in Europe say that they are adopting between 2 and 5 technologies, which is good, meaning that co-presence is there, it's a reality. If we go a bit more into the details of what I've just presented to you, here we see the actual numbers of adoption of all the 16 plus advanced technologies that were introduced before. So you can see that the blue bar represents the technologies that are already in use according to our survey of the end of last year, and the orange bars. So the part in orange represents the adoption plan in the next 12 months. So we also asked what are your intention in terms of adoption? Again, the so-called horizontal technologies are the most widespread and uptaken. And if we look at more specific industry-specific technologies, they tend to be on the bottom side of this industry. Biotechnologies are, in fact, quite low, as we can see. But the good point here is that if you see the plans of adoption almost equal the actual adoption. So there's a 10% of current adoption, and then there's another 10-11% of plan to start using in the next year, meaning that the projections are, as I said, are good. Looking at the same numbers, but comparing the results of our survey that we conducted in 2020 with the survey that we conducted the year before. So here we put the two results against each other. And what you can see is that the blue bar represents the results of last year, and the orange represents the results of the year before, and the yellow represents the plans of adoptions of the year before. So interestingly here, we can see that for some of the technologies that are still on the top of the list and on the top hand of this slide, of this chart, those that are most widespread, etc., there has been a drawback. There has been they have been hit by the economic slowdown. You can see, for example, let's take IoT, a fundamental technology when it comes to digital transformation across all industries, or most of the industries in Europe. IoT was projected at almost, so it's adopted by almost 40% of companies. Last year, it was adopted by less people, so by less companies, so there has been an improvement. But also last year, there were a lot of people saying, a lot of respondents saying that they would have adopted these technologies over the next 12 months. The total percentage would have reached almost 58%. But this did not materialize. So what we are seeing today, what we are witnessing today, is that the actual adoption in 2020 is lower than the expectations that were expressed a year before. Why this? Well, clearly because of the economic downturn or the crisis that has been generated by the pandemic. Now, the situation is definitely getting better. The economy has started to move again. So we expect these numbers to be considerably different over the next few months. And if we are to repeat the exercise at the end of this year, I'm pretty sure that the results will be much better. Interestingly, if you look at the bottom side of this graph, biotechnology industries, in bio-based industry technologies, well, the situation is actually reversed, and it's good because the current adoption, or the adoption according to our latest survey in 2020, is higher than the adoption in 2019 plus the adoption plan. So here there has been a net improvement, and the trend is going on this way. So the situation is definitely better. This is just a quick overview of these 16 technologies. Again, you see the advanced technologies on your left-hand side, and you see on the right-hand side, you see the different, we call them sectors or vertical markets, those that we have identified and included in the survey. We don't have bioeconomy or bioindustry directly here, but this is included in process manufacturing, which is more or less at the center of this graph. And not surprisingly, industrial biotechnologies are, of course, featured in the manufacturing, process manufacturing, and something in agriculture. If you look at the graph. This is not surprising. As I said, we are talking here of a set of technologies that are by definition and by nature pretty industry specific. On the other hand, if we look at the top of the technologies, those that are horizontal in nature, so connectivity, security, cloud, etc., they tend to be widespread along all the different vertical markets or sectors. This slide presents more or less the same result. I don't think that I want to go into that detail, but again, you see the different sectors across Europe. I'll finish with this one because this is not about adoption or uptake of advanced technologies, but it's about the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and the economic difficulties tied to this, and the effects that they have had on European industry by vertical markets and by sector. I've highlighted with the arrow here the process manufacturing sector, where bio-based technologies and bio industry is clearly categorized, if you want. And I would say that the situation is promising and is not that bad. If you look, we have divided the graph according to 5 different categories and asked if the companies are finding themselves in a recession, plain recession, or in an economic slowdown, or if they are continuing to do business, so business continuity, and they are returning to growth, so that there's already some growth at the horizon, or if they already have readapted and readjusted to the new reality. We know that there's not going to be a world exactly the same as it was before the pandemic. So we need to be all readjusted to a new normal. And so we asked them if they are already in that state. Essentially, the red, orange are bad situation, yellow is neutral, and green is good. If you look at the average in the middle of this, so all companies in Europe, in all EU 27 member states, for all technologies, well then it's a 50-50. But if we look at process manufacturing, where our interest is today, then the orange and red part is less than in the other sectors. So this is again a sign of a positive sign, I would say, that the process manufacturing sector is reacting better to the crisis as other sectors. So it's a promising sign for the biotechnologies industries itself. With this, I think I finished my presentation. I remain, of course, at your disposal for questions, and I now leave the floor to Sven Bidra for his own presentation and then the moderation of the event. Sven.
Thanks, Giorgio. But first, please keep your video on, because first I want to give you the floor back, as I'm also a moderator today here. We have one question directly to you here. So the question from the Q&A is if you could have some words about the basis of the data and how many respondents have answered the survey.
Yeah, so the survey, as I mentioned at the beginning, the survey is the second one that we conducted throughout the duration of this study. In the first survey, we surveyed and we interviewed essentially a sample of more than 900 companies. In this case, we realized that sample was probably too short, and that we wanted also to extend the number of countries where to conduct our survey. So this time is more than 1,500. It is mentioned somewhere in the slides as well. So we have I don't find it here, but it's 1,500 something, the number of respondents. I don't know if this responds to the question.
That's how I understood it, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Many thanks, Giorgio.
No, thank you.
Yeah. So now, hello from my side. I'm Sven Bidra of the Fraunhofer ISI and part of the project and take part in the project. And I want to complement first now the interesting slides from Giorgio with some results from our project resulting industrial biotechnology before I hand over the word to the panelists of today. But first, let me share my screen. One second. Okay, so can you see it, Giorgio? Can you see it?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
it's fine.
Okay, so what I want to present are two kind of reports or analysis we did. So Vangelis showed what all of different things we've done in the project. So what I refer to is on the first as a data dashboard Vangelis introduced. So I will show some numbers of industrial biotechnology and other ATIs technologies regarding some of the indicators. We are still working on some others like production and employment, but today I will have a look on the patents, export and investment, and then we made a specific analysis about the bio-based flavors and fragrances, and I will have some words about that because we are already a bit late in time. I will keep the second part a bit more shortly now. But now coming to some of the indicators of our project where we tried to compare the different technologies. So I only took some of these technologies that Giorgio presented. But so one indicator was the patents. And we don't show absolute indicators because it also is important how the overall patenting landscape involved and not just the one of the technology. So the patent significance means what is the share of a certain technology from all patents. So if we look on the numbers here from industrial biotechnology, which you see in blue, you see rather constant numbers. So that means that the overall share on all patents are pretty much the same. So the growth is rather similar than the growth in total patenting. And then we look on transnational patents, which only refers to patents that have importance internationally, not just on e.g. China patenting office or something like that. So what we see here is a rather constant importance of IB over time. We have a bit dynamic currently at production technologies and some of the ICT technologies, as you see, for artificial intelligence, but it's not on behalf of industrial biotechnology that it loses importance. So when we look who applies the patents here, we see that Europe is rather stable with around 20% of these patents in the very recent years. China is catching up here. So but still we could see a rather stable position. And what does it mean compared to other technologies? So here you see the 20%. What do they mean compared to other technologies? So we see industrial biotechnology right in the middle. So not so much patent shares as in advanced manufacturing technologies, but more the share is higher than some of the digital technologies. So I would also say here it's a rather average level. Getting more on the commercialization. So as we're still working on the product numbers, here we have the exports, which we also attributed to technologies. One is short remark here, we could only attribute those product codes which we could fully attribute to technology. So if bio-based has 1% or 5% of all the polymers at the moment, we didn't count polymers at bio-based for this exercise. So that could implicate a bit the interpretation. But when I come back to how important is industrial biotechnology, so of course, as here, all technologies, all goods are represented here. It's of course less than in the patents. It's about 0.3%. And also here we see a rather constant importance of IB products over time. And again, looking who is exporting it now. And here we see a quite a significant role of China for quite a long time. A lot of, I would say, also more traditional IB products like vitamins, lysines, and so on. They are already produced and exported there for quite a time. And Europe is at least in front of the US with a slight decline, but still I would say a rather stable picture. And the last number from the dashboard is about investment. We will hear about in the investment perspective more later, especially from Georg Lenzen. So here, but just one indicator which now refers to biotechnology in total. So it also includes medical biotechnology here, which is of course important when we come to investment. And here we see, of course, to some parts implicated by the COVID crisis as a very high number of investments, and biotechnology, one of the top technologies here. So again, and this we see have already saw in earlier years, a pretty much high part is in the US, and the EU and China are behind that. So we see quite a rise, as I said, especially also because of COVID. But yeah, let's let's see how it evolves in the future. I would like to complement now this rather overall pictures about indicators with some more qualitative insights in the product watch report we had. So here we looked on quite novel or promising product fields where we see a strong role of advanced technologies. We have quite now published quite some of them, for example, for digitalization of agriculture, synthetic fuels, and so on. But the most directly one to industrial biotechnology is our very first one from last May. It's about bio-based flavors and fragrances. So I think many of you are familiar with that from the participants today. Flavors and fragrances are substances that relate to the sense of tasting and or smelling. And typical markets are consumer products like in the food, personal care, or cosmetics. And in this product watch, we mostly look on biotechnology produced bio-based flavors and fragrances. Of course, they are also to some parts share extracted directly from nature, but here we had a look especially on those ones where modern biotechnology plays a part. And it's an interesting market. We're looking quite for some years on it now because it's a rather low volume, high value segment, which is very interesting for quite some biotechnology firms because there are quite some technology spillovers to other markets. So it could be a good entry for certain companies, especially SMEs, and then becoming more, growing more. Currently, we have we lie a bit below 10% of the overall market volume, which we could attribute to biotech. F&F, it's about in Europe, it's about a bit more than 100 million the market, and it's expected to rise in the next years, especially because of the demand in the food and beverage industry. And the market has one interesting future for biotechnology, as the rules are like that, that there is a regulation that many of the biotech products could apply as natural flavors, as they are based on some kind of natural materials. So that's interesting because that leads often to a premium from the consumer compared to chemical synthesized flavors and fragrances. So for every product what we did, we tried to understand the full value chain. I won't go in detail here. My message is here that on the one hand, when we look where this is located, we can find in each of the decisive stages, we looked on important actors from Europe or from Switzerland, or the EU or Switzerland, I mean. And an interesting thing is that all big companies in the F&F markets, they have competencies, capacities, or collaborations with biotech. It has really, there's none firm without working with biotech anymore there. we made a SWOT, and also here very briefly, because I think it touched upon some issues we will discuss later. We see, of course, some strength, especially related to the strong technology competences and the industrial basis. I just showed shortly with the firms in each of the important value chain steps. We see some opportunities with an increasing product range, which is enabled by industrial biotechnology. As I said, some products are directly extracted from nature. Here, the availability is, of course, limited. That means that it's sometimes interesting to produce them with biotechnology in addition. But of course, there are some quite known challenges, which I think the bioeconomy community knows quite well. It's again, despite sometimes the premium, the cost competitiveness to fossil-based products is of importance, and also the upscaling and production capacities are a bottleneck, especially as we have not so much fermentation capacity in Europe, and that's especially relevant for F&F SMEs that don't easily find someone who could produce their new products. And the international competition is, of course, strong, especially from the US. You probably know Amiris or Ginkgo Bioworks, who have a large pipeline, which also refers to some extent to flavors and fragrances. And it's in addition, a bit unclear whether there will be an issue about this natural claim or not. I don't go in detail about that. But coming to a conclusion, what we find here, so we think Europe is in a quite okay position here in flavors and fragrances, as we have important resources and capacities. But of course, as I just presented, there are quite some challenges. So the outlook would be in the forthcoming years that a steady growth of biotech might be likely, but of course it depends to some extent on the framework conditions. So thank you very much until now. That's my presentation. And now I want to like to bring in the other speakers now. So we prepared it like this, that I will introduce the speakers after another. That means we ask each speakers to have a short statement about 3 to 5 minutes about their view from their perspective on the development of industrial biotechnology. And I would like, and then we have some questions, and of course we try to pick up also questions from the Q&A later. But let me now start with Ludo Diels. He's from Vito in Belgium, as a and research leader of this technology research center. And he's very well known in the community and is very active. And many thanks, Ludo, that you are here now. And now I would like to give you the words to have some statements from your point of view.
Thank you very much, Sven, for the introduction, and I'm really happy to join this discussion. And also would like to thank Giorgio for the introduction, because when we see to what is happening with industrial biotechnology, up to now the uptake in the EU was still limited, but we see a net improvement and especially a strong adaptation to what we call the new reality. And I would like to link my short observations and issues to this point, and especially I would like to focus to the deployment of industrial biotechnology, so the real deployment in the industrial landscape, and also to the links to the process industry. How do we really produce this kind of situation of different products? So let me first start with a slide where I look a little bit on the synthetic biology fermentation-based industrial biotechnology. So we see a strong evolution of the fermentation-based productions. This is very clear, and I think a lot of the patents are completely related to these topics. Because they are all based in a certain way to synthetic biology, And also, and I think this is new for the last years, is the integration not only with biochemical, but also with chemical reactions and conversions, and certainly the flavor and fragrances results that were presented by Sven illustrate this very strongly. What I do not see at the moment is big changes in the downstream processing, although we know that 60 to 70% of the costs of industrial biotechnology are linked to this downstream processing. So I think there is still a big challenge for the future. And this is linked also, and you can call it as well downstream processing if you want, to wastewater treatment. Every biotechnological process is working in a very diluted system, and mostly we use water as our solvent, and so we end up with big wastewater treatment problems. And I think this is always, especially when we go to the deployment, a little bit forgotten or neglected, and this is really a hurdle for the further deployment of it. Linked to that, I think we can go to much more the development of continuous reactors and PAT as analytical tools, which will reduce strongly the need for very big reactors on one hand, and on the other hand, it will strongly reduce the use of water. And so in general, I think process intensification linked to reduction of costs, of course linked to the two former or the three former lines as well, and also to the reduction of greenhouse gas emissions is certainly an important point for the next years. Also, I would like now to move to another part in the industrial biotechnology. And this is looking to the total biorefineries, and I take as an example wood, but really forgive me if I do it in that way. I could also say the biorefinery of all kinds of crops, of foodstuffs, etc. At the moment, we see that the modern biorefinery of wood can use more than 94% of all the components. So this is really making something very sustainable. And we see that this is moving strongly to the production of chemicals and materials. So we move a little bit away from the niche applications, maybe from the low amount, high added value compounds, also to higher amount intermediate value compounds, etc. And so this diversity of chemicals and materials also creates an economic stability. I mean, if you set up a biorefinery with 10, 20 products as an output, you can create a kind of stabilization of your economics due to the fact that you always have winning and a little bit losing products that you sell. I also see that finally, also these biorefineries have a strong attention to energy reduction and greenhouse gas emission reduction. And this is due to the fact that they do not have that much waste anymore that could be burned for the energy input, etc. They are using everything. So this means that this attention to energy reduction is also increasing. And linked to that, we see that the added value per cubic meter of biomass increases very strongly. Just to take an example, the pulp and paper business is going down, but it creates enormous opportunities towards the chemicals and materials markets. And we see that also the chemicals and material markets are looking forward to have this kind of issues. Of course, there is a strong link with afforestation and biodiversity increase. Again, so we have a lot of opportunities there to increase forest cover in Europe and to use, for instance, feedstock from thinnings, etc. in our industry. As I mentioned in the beginning, also there is a big challenge for other crops. We see that we have now sugar beet refineries fully dedicated to taking everything out of it and using it. And I can continue to say that about straw, about wastes, etc. So we are moving to more bulk, so there is a higher need for feedstock. So this is interesting, certainly, and can be done if we really use everything that we have. There is also, and this is a point I want to make to the innovation issues, we need to develop this completely until the market and not just to the potential markets. And there I think there is a strong issue for companies and technology centers to really create this breakthrough up to the full market, and this is by setting up much more pilots. Finally, I would like to come to the new reality and the challenges from the Green Deal. So there is a huge demand for circular feedstock and to stop the fossil input. So in that way, I think we really can make use of bio-based materials as a carbon sink. And we have not only to look to the story of biodegradability, but also to replace fossil materials by biomaterials and to keep the carbon in a circular way. This means paying attention to recycling. We can make composite materials fully bio-based, not combination between fossil and bio, but completely bio-based. We have a huge opportunity to go more to safe and sustainable by design via bio-based materials, and we can refurbish existing assets to reduce capex, but also to increase the speed in the deployment. If we have to set up a new factory, it will take too much time, and we are lacking this time. And of course, mixed biomass and other waste processing is a new topic where we are entering. So we are not just looking to clean biomass, if you want, but also to mixed biomass with fossil based materials, etc. So this is certainly also a challenge. I will stop here and look forward to discuss this further.
Many thanks, Ludo, for this presentation. I will have directly one question from the audience to you before we move to the next speakers. So the question is if you could say something about the quantity of feedstocks that is available for biorefinery applications, as the one who asks says in many areas the person sees a stress in the available resources. So what's your view on that? Is it?
I think if we look to the use of carbon as we do it now, it means most of the carbon is just used as a fuel and burned. Of course, we will not have enough biomass available in Europe and even not worldwide to solve this problem. If we keep carbon in a circular system, then we have the possibility to take the carbon from the biomass in a very good way, because once it is in the system, we will keep it circular. Of course, we need every year some extra virgin material, because every circularity model will have a loss of 5–10% at least. And so the provision of this extra virgin material on the longer term can be realized by bio-based. So if we move to a circular carbon use, we will have not anymore this discussion about availability of biomass. Of course, if we continue just to burn it, then we still have the problem of availability.
Thank you very much for this important statements. There are more questions there, but from the audience, but I would like to move on at the moment. Perhaps you could also have a look in the Q&A, Ludo. Perhaps also it's possible to get a written answer, and perhaps you're better able to work with this, because I realized I clicked one Q&A away. I wanted to answer directly and come back to this later. But now come to our second speaker, Georg Lenzen. I'm glad that he's here. He has a strong long background in research as research director in different SMEs, and since the last years he is as a managing director at B-Value, which invests in biotech startups and funders. And yeah, I'm looking forward to your perspective, Georg, on the topic of industrial biotechnology.
Yeah, thank you very much for the kind introduction, and thank you for the opportunity to give a few views from basically from a seed investor perspective. As said, we B-Value, my organization, we are a seed investor. So we are in and with a focus on industrial biotech. Can you see the slides right now? Actually,
sorry, not yet. I cannot see it yet.
Okay, I see. Too bad.
Now it's something starts. Yes, now we see it, Georg. Now we see it. Right.
Okay. Yeah, I would like to give you. So, as said, we are a seed phase investor with a focus on industrial biotech, also a bit in advanced materials, but really the most of the companies we currently are invested in are in the industrial biotech area. And for now, still focus very much on Germany, but that will we hope we are still growing. We ourselves still an SME, and what I would like to give you as here is just a few remarks, a few viewpoints from a seed phase investor point of view on the industrial biotech area. Basically, yeah. So just made it 6 points for discussion that I would like to put forward, and I think that link well with what Ludo Deal said and what has been said before. The first is, of course, we have heard about F&F, and we think that this is a typical example of where EU startups typically are right now. We typically still see them focusing on high-value products, and F&F is an excellent example for that because it offers super high-value and medium high-value products. It offers great opportunities for biotech, and it especially needs low scaling. It has low scaling requirements, relatively low capex requirements. There is even tolling is possible in that area. So that is an area which is ideal to start in. And that's where we still see a lot of startups basically focusing their product ideas in this field. However, and I think that's what we just heard from Ludo as well, is more recently we see more startups that really go into high volume products. And that really, so, and of course, with the small volume products, F&F, the impact is small. These products are produced in the 10 to 100 to 1,000 ton range. That is not really, if you think where's most of the carbon actually used in the chemical industry, it's in plastics, of course, but it's basically in the huge products, and here we see now more and more startups that are going to that are tackling this. And why is this possible? Of course, it has to do with new tools. It has to do with a massive cost reduction, with new tools in synthetic biology, with new tools in process intensification. So biomanufacture with new tools in bio-based manufacturing, also with more refined biorefinery concepts. So this is really driving the cost down into the area where it really becomes relevant for large volume products. So we see this also, we see a lot of investor interest in this area. Also, not not just from us, but from many bigger investment companies. And certainly a fourth point here is the impact of this Green Deal, the Sustainable Development Goals, that is growing rapidly. And it's not so much, so it's of course growing in the impact is growing in the industry, but we see especially the pressure from the consumer facing industry. So our startups typically reach out and are heard a lot by the consumer brands, and they are very, very much attracted to these to bio-based solutions. And the big challenge is, of course, then how do you get from a start to from a good concept, from a small lab idea to a large product. And here, I think the key challenge for, and this has been mentioned before too, the key challenge is indeed the financing of piloting and demonstration plants. So, because in contrast to the specialty chemicals that were basically, that was typically for now still in the focus of most companies, these larger products need huge capex expenditure. They need piloting, and they need, even after the piloting, they need demonstration plants. And this goes into the tens of millions, sometimes hundreds of millions in terms of investment, without any immediate revenue perspective. So this is a huge challenge, and has often proven to be really a huge hurdle. And I think this is a challenge that we have to answer somehow. How we can tackle that in the EU. And perhaps something very recent, what we see is now, you may have heard in the last weeks, there was some relative, quite spectacular financing news on synthetic biology company. Ginkgo Bioworks has been mentioned before, is now going on the stock market with a above $10 billion valuation. Zymergen, other companies US companies are in that range. And we think, whilst this is the US, we think that these synthetic biology financings will also impact how financing for industrial biotech will be in the future, will happen in the EU and Europe. And we can also already see that these players are actually starting to buy European companies. So that's certainly having an effect, and also that, I think it's worth considering. Okay, that was as much as I want to give a few basically points on where we, from an SME startup point of view, see where industrial biotech, right now the trends are in industrial biotech.
Thank you very much, Georg. I think it's really interesting to see the factors, and especially the involvement in the recent years. So perhaps we go to the next speaker and come later to the discussion questions also in the Q&A. So the third speech will be given by Agnes Borg. She's Director for Industrial Biotechnology at Europa Bio, the European Association for Bioindustries. I think many of the participants will know the association and you, Agnes. So please have some words coming from your association point on the development of industrial biotechnology.
Thanks a lot, Sven, and good morning also from me. So indeed, I was asked to say a few words from Europa Bio's perspective, and so we are the industry association representing the biotechnology industry in Europe across healthcare and industrial biotechnology applications. And as you see on this first intro slide, we are very active in various aspects of this and around the communications around biotechnology as a key enabling technology and achieving a positive innovation and overall climate for biotech and the bio-based industries. And I was, if I can go to the next slide. So I also wanted to come back, since we are also active in Brussels and around the policy environment there, to say a few words also on from that perspective. And of course, as we see it as well, industrial biotechnology has an important role to play also now in the broader policy framework of the European Commission, is well placed to help contribute towards several of the objectives that have been set, because indeed you've seen this slide before, and we've also added, it's a complex one, but we've added also or pointed out certain areas where we also see the importance of industrial biotechnology, or fields where we are looking at. And of course, it's around the climate. That's really at the heart of the Green Deal, with the climate neutrality objective for 2050. You have the farm to fork strategy, which also acknowledges the role of innovative technologies. And as some or many of you will know, the Commission also recently published a new study on the status of new genomic techniques, which of course is also very important related to microorganisms. And that one also acknowledges that NGTs can contribute towards the Green Deal, farm to fork, and also competitiveness objectives of the EU. We heard also already mentioned the circular economy aspects, of course, with using waste as a resource, also moving towards more recycling, more reuse, less reducing consumption overall. And of course, it's very important that the circular economy and the bioeconomy discussions are also interlinked. And we heard also from the Commission at the beginning of the event, of course, the industrial strategy, which was published around a year ago, but also updated very recently in light of COVID, and to accelerate the green and digital transition, where it's of course also important for our discussions today, which also links to what I wanted to say on my next slide, which is on the economic impact of the biotechnology industry, because it is a strong economic player, and also with very big potential moving forward. And I wanted to say a few words on this because recently we published a study around the economic impact of the broader biotechnology industry. So looking at healthcare, industrial, and agricultural biotechnology. And there, if you look at the GDP, so it benefited by 34.5 billion, up to almost 80 if you look at the spillover effects as well. And the figure is over 15 billion total for industrial biotechnology. Also, the direct contribution to jobs is significant, with over 9. If you also look at or cover associated employment, and 223 if you look at direct employment. And there, the figure for industrial biotechnology is 43,000 and over 220,000 if you look with direct, indirect, and induced. I think there are also several aspects that are very interesting. If you look at industrial biotechnology specifically, it's a very strong labor productivity, for example, with over 100,000 euros in GVA compared to the overall, or if you look at the total economy, that number is around 60,000. Also, when it comes to the job multiplier, and that aspect is, of course, also very important when you look at the industrial strategy aims. How much does, apart from the direct jobs, how much is created across the value chain? And there, industrial biotechnology is the highest one amongst all the biotechnology sectors. So that's a brief introduction from my side, and I'll hand over again to Sven.
Thank you very much, Agnes. Very interesting and important to bring in the policy perspective and showing the economic importance, especially you can see very well in your numbers the importance through the whole value chain. Yeah, and that was something we tried to look a bit qualitatively in our product watches, but here you can see it really matters from an economic point of view. So now I ask all the speakers, yeah, again, thanks for turning on your video. So I have some questions. I already see some questions in the Q&A, so I try a mix between, yeah. So the first question, well, I was not sure for which one is what meant, but I think you all three could say something about it if you want, was the question, which sectors have the biggest growth of industrial biotechnology? Do you think there are certain sectors where we see certain dynamics, or perhaps not, perhaps it's looking at all sectors? So do you have a perspective on that question from your knowledge? I'm open. Who wants to start? Does anybody wants to start?
Well, I think what industrial biotechnology basically is it's a platform. So it's a platform technology. There are so many sectors it can feed into. I think what we see, what is of course hot right now, is everything in terms of alternative protein and food and materials. So I think these are two areas but I think that's more. So basically, whatever the chemical industry can do, yeah, a lot of it will be done by industrial biotechnology in the future. That is that is the credo of industrial biotech, and I think it's fundamentally true.
Maybe I can add a little bit to that, and I think indeed what we see is that a lot of industrial biotechnology companies are moving towards the chemical industry and vice versa, if you want. So we get an integration between these two businesses. A typical pulp and paper company knows how to put a tree in a reactor, if I can say, which a chemical company don't know how to do that, but they know how to make really a chemical and a material out of it. And so we see this connection between these two businesses very strongly. And in view of the circular and climate neutral economy, this will be the way to go for it. And so this will open up a strong opportunity for more bulk materials, but taking into account, and I think that's extremely important, performance, because bio-based materials do have already these functionalities that we have to add if we want to make fossil-based feedstock functional. So this is an advantage if we do it in the right way. We spent in Europe a huge amount of money just to buy crude oil from outside Europe. So this is money that we can keep for our own economy in a certain way if we move towards bio-based feedstock. But I repeat, only if we do it in a circular way and not if we do it in an energy consumption way, of course.
And to add also from my side, I think it was mentioned before also around some of the important trends right now, really with the increased demand for or the awareness around sustainable products, but also the demand for more sustainable production methods where biotechnology can play an important role. And I think this, yeah, it really doesn't go, the various trends don't go unnoticed for investors, but also Europe has set, a very ambitious framework for sustainability moving forward. But I think, yeah, I agree also with several of the points that have been made. Areas like cultivated meat, plant-based protein, bio-based chemicals, a push also towards, renewable portfolio there. If you look ahead, yeah.
Thanks for.
If I can add, I think George also mentioned it. I think the brand owners nowadays are really the drivers, because they have the link with the consumers, and the consumers, they want to have more sustainable products. And so the brand owners every day, I think the chemical industry has contacts with brand owners asking for more sustainable materials. And so this will drive them to the use of more bio-based materials. And it's not only linked to chemistry, it's also linked in the same time even to food and feed issues. So this will go more and more together as well.
Yes, and if I can just add to this, if we look at the, let's say, methodology that we have applied in interpreting the survey results, and we see that essentially all the sectors and subsectors that you have mentioned here, they are they come in one bucket, which is the one that we called process manufacturing, and to some extent to agriculture. And not surprisingly, these are two sectors that are reacting quite well, especially process manufacturing, to the current crisis, and that they have shown a good, let's say, good trends for advanced technologies in general. So I think this is, it can be linked to what you're saying here. Yeah, that's it.
Okay. Thanks, and I would like to stay with my next question a bit to the survey you showed, Giorgio, because you also showed that it's not only when we come from a certain sector, from certain firms or from biotech firms, it's not only about one technology. You showed overall for the whole survey, the number, I think it was that 75% of all companies use two of these technologies or more. So here, coming a bit from the purpose of our project, the question would be, how would you that from as the panelists see from the area, from the firms you represent or you do invest or to what extent does an interplay with other of these advanced manufacturing technologies matters? Which one are that? Is digitalization a big issue or whatever? So do you see a great linkage between different technologies, or how would you be your view on that? So
I can start maybe on that one, just with a couple of thoughts. I mean, of course, you cover a lot of technologies in your project, and I think several are relevant to consider. I mean, just to give a couple of examples, I think, for example, you see more demand and interest in the issue around personalized nutrition and health, for example, and these various digital health platforms and how you can optimize nutrition based on data and these kind of things. So I think if you can look at also bigger populations and how we can use, for example, micronutrients or vitamins in that perspective, I think it's one example. I think, of course, artificial intelligence and applying that also around biomanufacturing will become increasingly important. I think also in the circular economy discussion, the digitalization aspect is important, but I think also here it's very interesting what you see in terms of collaborations, because you will really need researchers and industries really going together and using different types of competences in those fields really to bring it forward. So those were a few examples from my side.
Maybe from my side, when we will move to the use of more biomass, consumers will also be concerned about the origin of it. Is the biomass not coming from tropical forests and this kind of things? From which kind of waste is it coming? So in that way, the link to digital, and that will be blockchain issues, etc., for tracking and tracing of your feedstock will become extremely important, especially if we move also to use wastes to transform it into food and feed, etc. And a second point I would like to make is the fact that in this in this conversion, we also have a strong focus on additive manufacturing. And I think that bio-based materials can play a strong role in these systems as well. So it is possible to make a bridge fully out of a bio-based material via a printer. In fact, this kind of systems will get attention for the coming years also quite strongly, I think.
Jörg, do you want to add something here, or is...
No, I was just.
You don't have to.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Let's leave us a bit. Yeah, no, but you have the word. Yeah.
Sorry?
Okay, no, sorry, I was misunderstanding from my side. So
Okay.
I would take now as a bit of time we still have, and we have some questions from the audience. I have some questions from myself still. So I will try to combine it a bit, and first perhaps turn to you, Lodo. I have one question, and then there are several questions to you from the audience. Let's look how much we can combine here. So my question would be, in the early beginning, Vangelis showed us the role and importance of technology centers, which have clearly a role in industrial biotechnology. I think all the statements from you different speakers, they also referred a bit to technology centers. So my question would be, how well works these technology centers in Europe? Does it work well? And are they connected between? Not every technology center can cover everything. Is there a good connection between them? That would be my question. And then you potentially saw there were some additional questions in the beginning from your talk. If you want to pick any of these, I would give now the floor to you shortly.
So maybe first about the technology centers. I think we have a huge amount of technology centers in Europe, so that's already an advantage. Concerning collaboration, we see that collaborations are often, depending of big European projects. So they are created, then the project is approved, and then you have a very nice collaboration, but they are maybe in a lot of cases not continuous, if I can say. So this is certainly a point that can be improved, I think, to create value on the long term. You need a long collaboration and not a collaboration for only 3 years. So that's the first point I want to make. Second, we mentioned strongly the need for pilots, demonstration plans, etc. I think that the job of the industry is to move to the first of a kind plants, so the real deployment, but technology centers can play a big role in these pilots. This is mostly a quite strong investment that we need, but we need to do this. And if there would be a good collaboration and agreement between the different technology centers, we can really decide to put a certain pilot here, another pilot there, etc., so that we optimize the investments in a certain way and optimize the use of this kind of equipment. And I really think it is a role of technology centers to take these risks, and not just to set up technologies that are already known. If I mentioned earlier about continuous reactors, I think you find so many demonstration centers for fermentation, and they all have all kinds of classical fermenters, but try to find a continuous reactor. It's very difficult. Try to find a continuous reactor where we have all the inline monitoring equipment, etc. Of course, it's much more risky, but I think we should make agreements between different technology centers to set up this kind of new steps that we need, so that also at the level of processing, and not just at the level of the development, we can come to a strong development, creating production which is less costly and which produces less water. It needs less water and less emissions. Can you help me with the questions because I could not see them all.
Yeah,
Can you just repeat them if you wanted?
So one, I don't know if you clicked it like me as not knowing how to use it, or if you really want to say it. There was one question about, is some Synbio being used for lignocellulosic deconstruction? And here it says for me that you wanted to answer it in real time.
Yeah, something went wrong when I tried to answer. So
that's the same for me. I clicked it away, the one I wanted to answer.
So I think maybe it's a little bit a general answer on that question, but I think that lignocellulose processing is extremely important, and not only for the wood processing, but also for straw processing and for all kinds of waste from crops, etc. So we have seen the last years quite a huge amount of diversified approaches to it. And it's not to an end. I think we need still to do this further so that the processing of lignocellulose will become cheaper and maybe also milder concerning conditions, so that we need less energy, less chemicals, etc. And so this is certainly still a challenge on which Europe is doing quite a lot, and which needs to be done further in the coming years, I think.
Thank you very much, Guido. I would turn to Georg and do the same. One question for mine and one which I see here in the Q&A. So my questions would be coming from the perspective of the SMEs itself. So when they are probably or hopefully successful in having a higher TRL and working well with technology centers, what should they do? What is what kind of elements, factors are relevant that it's interesting that you invest later in? So is there clear to do or not to do for the firms? That would be my question. And I see a question from the audience which asks about generally if you see a lack of financing for industrial biotechnology, and if so, at which stage? So perhaps you can pick up these questions a bit.
Okay. Well, what they should do? The general answer is, of course, make less mistakes. Make less mistakes, but make the mistakes early, basically. Yeah? So, which means really tackle the challenges that are ahead, not running away from it. But in terms of when they have reached a certain TRL, basically, I think before actually thinking about only technology development, talk to your customers and talk to the customers of the customers. We have heard that from several sides now, the consumer-facing industry is very keen on bio-based solutions. Often, the direct contact of a bio-based industry startup is really very far away in terms of concepts from the consumer-based industries, but they must. It's very important to really build that bridge and make yourself heard with the brands, and there is a lot of attention there. And and then of course get your first products out there, and the products. One thing we see, of course, is that the first products in this bio-based area often they aren't perfect yet, because you're competing against the chemical industry with 100 years of experience in certain areas where it's really difficult to get there. But the potential for bio-based to be equally good or even better is there. It's just important to have first minimal products relatively early, so that people can at the brands, the brand owners can really get a feeling for what is possible, because a chemical building block doesn't tell them a lot, basically. So you have to have something more tangible than that. Again, F&F is a good example where things become tangible quite early, because you can smell it and taste it. but in other areas this is a bit more difficult. So this is I think it's good advice to talk to the customers and to the customers of your customers. And about financing, where of course it's always challenging, huh? So this is nowhere easy. I think in the industrial biotech, indeed, the biggest challenge is not in finding financing for a good startup. So that is a more easy. I think has become more easier. Not as easy as in the digital area, but still, I think it's possible to find financing for good concepts. What is the challenge is really the finance of the growth. So financing, piloting, and demonstration. Because if you want to go into big products, you need, in some cases, you need a demonstration plant. You need a pilot plant first. It will not earn any money. You need a demonstration plant. It will also not earn any money, and no investor likes that, of course. So that is the challenge, really, for. We have the ECBF. We have some things in that area where this is being tackled, but I think even more needs to be done here if we really want to get this transformation into bio-based working.
Thanks a lot, Georg. Thanks a lot for this view. I would come now to Agnes. So I would come to the issue a bit. We had a lot about the consumer, and coming a bit to the question of the consumer awareness and a bit the acceptance. So, e.g., for example, in the Q&A, we had, for example, the questions: are there any potential risks with IB, economic or environmental? So there may be risks, there may be also benefits. So perhaps you could answer that a bit. And my question would also a bit, what is the role of Europa Bio, or what are you doing, to raise the awareness of biotech? And because the question is how the consumers gets more aware of it. So perhaps you can have some words on this.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. And indeed, the questions are interlinked. I think maybe there's an important discussion that needs to take place around these technologies and raise general awareness. I think not only about biotechnology. I mean, it's an invisible technology in many ways, but I think also generally about bio-based products and the benefits that they can offer. I think Ludo mentioned earlier, for example, the new functionalities and those type of aspects, which I think there's maybe not as much awareness about than it could be. I also think if you look broader, of course, I think you mentioned risks and you mentioned opportunities as well. I mean, I think it's a lot about the framework, and you really have the technology. It's not about an issue about technology or the science, but also the framework that it operates in. And innovation is really moving very fast, and it's also important to really have the speed. I think, of course, there are big investments that need to be done. That was mentioned by Jörg just now, and of course there are risks if you endeavor there. But I think it's important to look, if you look from a global competitiveness perspective, the framework also with both speed and the regulatory framework is important to consider as well, and really make sure that that is an enabling one. You see several issues moving ahead very rapidly at a global level as well, and it's important that Europe also keeps up there. But around awareness and what Europa Bio is doing, I think a lot of the work that we do is about raising awareness about biotechnology and linking it to several other broader framework. A couple of examples is the Biotech Week that is going to take place later this year. So it's an event that takes place at the end of September every year. This year is starting on the 27th. It's really aiming also to reach a broader audience with various types of events around biotechnology. We also have our own conference, the European Forum for Industrial Biotechnology and the Bioeconomy, where we also really try to put the startups on the stage. And I think a lot of interesting ones and fields have been mentioned there already. And we also have this year our 25th anniversary, and there we are looking back on, what has happened, what have been big developments and advancements over the past 25 years that we can highlight now, and also really looking towards the future.
Thank you very much, Agnes, for your points on this one. So now we are quite advanced in time, or we are already over time. It was planned until 11:30, so I would now give the word back to the project leader here, Giorgio, or we could give then the word. You could give the word further to Vangelis. But I think also we have still some interesting questions in the Q&A. I think we have to come to an end, unfortunately.
No, I think. Yep, Alessandra?
Ciao. Sì.
No, Ale,
mute yourself.
Oh.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. So I was saying, I think we had a very, very interesting discussion, and I'm not an expert of the. Sorry, is it possible to mute someone from?
Niente, bocca al lupo allora con un nuovo appartamento.
Is it possible to mute someone from?
I cannot. I think it must be the moderator.
Sure.
Maybe,
yes, it has been muted.
Okay, thank you very much. So apologies for this. So I think we had a quite interesting discussions, and I would like to thank you in particular the speakers that wanted and made it possible today, and of course Vangelis for the opening statement and for your support and the support of the DG Grow, the European Commission, throughout the execution of the project. The project is still there; it's not going away, but it's definitely in the final phase. We'll be producing other final reports, and so the website will be, let's say, replenished with the additional content. We will also carry out additional events. This project is and was rich in content, research content, but also in dissemination events. So there will be more coming in the next few weeks. I would say for the months of certainly for the month of June, until the end of June. And so I invite you to check the website. And thank you, Sven, also for moderating the second half. I wouldn't be able to do it because I'm not into the biotechnology business as you are. So thank you for this. And with this, I'll leave the floor to Evangelos Meles for a final statement, I think.
Thank you, Giorgio. I would like to echo what you said about the expertise, because myself, I've been following the project very, very well and very closely since the beginning. But I have to admit that for several of the topics that you touched upon, they needed so much expertise that I could not even myself tackle them. And the important points that were raised, what we see as added value of this type of events that we have been having in the project, is that based on the reports that we produce, we disseminate it further to external stakeholders, but most importantly to our colleagues within the Commission that I think are working specifically on several of the aspects that you have tackled, being it investment needs, being it pilot plans around these technologies or these areas, or being enabling conditions such as the framework and the policy framework that has been raised. So on that, I really think that our report would be of relevance and of use. What I would still like to do, and just kindly ask ask our speakers and our consortium to still gather the rest of the questions that are there in the Q&A, and possibly we can tackle them offline and include them maybe in this report if we have relevant questions. And with that, I would say that I'm really happy for the vibrant discussion. It's one of the cases where we unfortunately had to be a little bit over time, but fortunately, I think it was of really interest to the participants and to the audience. Thank you all very much, and especially to the speakers for participating, the consortium for putting this together, and the French Bioeconomy Cluster for hosting us. Thank you so much, and till next time. Have a nice day.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for all the consortium for having, let's say, proposed this very nice webinar. We have seen a very high level of speakers. This shows, let's say, the pertinence and the relevance of this kind of project for the EU. Looking forward for, let's say, a follow-up of this project, maybe in the scope of a new project, new call, in the scope of Horizon Europe in the coming years. And I would like to remember again our next webinar with Novacep on June 24. It's an advanced technology, again, for downstream processing. Ludo mentioned that the downstream processing is quite important in industrial biotechnology. And this is what we are going to tackle with the chromatography technology from lab to industrial. Vito knows very well the company Novacep, and they are quite active as well, Ludo with Vito, in the downstream processing. Then this is an area that they know very well. And we are looking forward to see you, let's say, during that webinar. I would like to mention as well for Agnes Borg, EFIB next October in Vienna. If you like to see everything about the policy in Europe concerning industrial biotechnology and the circular bioeconomy, as we should call it now. It's very important. It will be on site as well, probably one of the first events in the bioeconomy on site. Looking forward to see you them as well. And then we look forward to see a lot of people to present key enabling technology during Biotech in March. It will be on site as well. Hopefully, let's say, we can do everything from now onward on site. And the call for paper for Biotech, it's open. Then see you later, and have a nice evening or a nice afternoon, because it's still early in the morning. Goodbye, everyone. Thank you. And have a nice weekend. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.